Hello, welcome to voyage to space, where we embark on a journey to better understand the cosmos. We explore different topics related to space like dark matter, time dilation, and what space is. Today on a voyage, we'll be interacting with another explorer on a voyage to the cosmos, a female astrophysicist to be precise. As part of the role model series, we'll be learning from experiences of an astrophysicist on a voyage to space. Ilaria is a Sherman Fairchild Prize Fellow at Caltech. She's interested in stellar evolution and dynamics, in particular in star clusters and the remnants of stellar deaths, white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes. She's also a writer and movie producer. The latest movie she produced, The Recycling Man, is currently screening at several festivals. The fact that you advocated for investment in science and constantly take initiative to teach motivates me. Thank you so much for being here today. So, first of all, what was the motivation for you to pursue your career in astrophysics? When did you know that this is what you wanted to do for a living?
That's a good question. A lot of my friends and colleagues, they wanted to be astronomers since they were little. They used to go on the fields and look at the stars with their little telescopes. For me, it wasn't like that. It took me a long time to get here. I actually wanted to be a diplomat when I was in high school. So I changed my mind many times. And so actually the year of philosophy in university before switching to physics. And so I did a lot of physics for my undergrad or for my master. And so I moved into more the astrophysics during the end of my master and during my Ph.D. So it was more of a voyage that brought me to astrophysics. It wasn't what I always wanted to do. I never knew what I really wanted to do. It was more of a discovery. But then when I started, I really liked physics. I really liked science. I've always have. And astrophysics, it gave me the impression that with stars, I started with neutron stars, which are these very, very strange, exotic objects, in which, to study them, you really have to know all possible field of physics. So they're like these amazing laboratories in space where you can study lots and lots of different fields of physics, from relativity to electrodynamics to quantum mechanics. Everything is important in a neutron star. So to understand it well, you have to know all of these different types of physics. So that's what really fascinated me about stars. They're very extreme objects and they're amazing laboratories to study physics.
That's great. That's really fascinating to hear about your journey. I know you didn't really have an interest in physics, but then after all decided to go with it. So, how did you choose a college for your undergrad studies? And what was the process of making that choice?
So I mean, in Italy, I don't know how it is in India. I've learned a lot about the US system, for example, North American system, in which, uh, as a student in high school, and even before that, you have this goal to get into these like big important universities and you have to choose. In Italy, it's not like that. Most universities are public. And so, of course, there are some that are better than others, but there isn't that much pressure on a student, to choose your university and you have to get into that college. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard. I mean, university is very good and it's public. Actually, it's I didn't realize it how what a good things we have here in Italy until I went outside, which is like you can, of course, there are different. It's different in different fields, but for physics, for example, it's not hard to get into a good college or a good university. And so actually I went to the university that is like close to my hometown in Genova, which turned out to be a very good university of physics. But I didn't really, I don't know how it is there in India, but if you think about the US, you just have, it's very different. You have to plan, right, way ahead if you want to get into a big university. It's not the same in Italy. I had to plan more, to continue my career, for example, like for my PhD, where to go, and then for my postdoc right now, right? So that I had to think a lot more in that sense of where to go. But for the university, for the bachelor degree, it wasn't that hard to get into a very good university. And so it was just the closest to my hometown.
That's a much better system than it is in India. It's very competitive here. I think in a lot of countries as well.
I mean, my current advisor is Srinivas Kulkarni. Is from India, and he told me about how hard it is. You have this very exam, this very hard exam, that decides which university you can get in. It's so competitive. It must be so stressful for young people. I cannot even imagine.
Yes, it really is. So you received your PhD in physics from the University of British Columbia in Canada. So what was it like studying in a different country, and what did you gain from experiences there?
It's very important, I think, to go to another country. I mean, for me, it was. It even if North America is not that different from Europe in terms of like a cultural shock, because Western countries, we have a lot of things in common. However, it was different. It was very different still, going from Italy to Canada. So I learned a lot in terms of like my views of the world changed a lot when I moved there. So I think that's the main. It's an amazing thing that comes from living abroad that nothing else can give you. That experience of like seeing a different culture, a different way of living. It changes your perspective on a lot of things. So that's I think that's the major thing you can get from going abroad. And also, for me, it was great to go to Canada because I went to UBC, which is a wonderful university, and I found a great advisor. As a PhD student, who's your advisor is extremely important because it's really the person, they're really the person that, they can change your whole career. They teach you how to do research. And so it's very important. And I was lucky because I found a great advisor there. So I'm very happy that I chose to go there. So yeah, these two main things, going abroad is always a great experience. And for me, it was a super good experience because I found Jeremy. Was my advisor there.
That's great to hear. You have had various teaching experiences, being the lecturer of an upper level undergraduate and graduate course in high energy astrophysics at UBC, and organizer of the Simulating Stars Summer School at the University of Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing. What did you gain from these experiences, and what was it like teaching scientific concepts?
So with science, doing research in science is a very humbling experience because no matter how good you are, no matter how well you know the subject, you can always know it better. And there's always so many things you actually don't know, or you think you know, and then you figure out you actually don't. And so teaching is a great way to figure that out, to, look at a subject with new views, because you have to teach it. So you have to know it very well. And you have to kind of prepare for all the different questions that people can ask you. And that's a very different way of studying a subject. If you have to learn it to do an exam, or if you have to learn it to teach it, right? Very different. And so for me, especially the course that I taught at UBC, which was, a big course. It was also a course on high energy astrophysics. So the stuff that I work on, so it was related to my research. However, by preparing it, I realized there was so much I didn't know. And so much that I thought I knew, but actually I didn't fully understood it, right? And preparing for the course really helped me understand it so much better. And of course, I really like to teach. I like the interaction with the students. I have this very like sort of an empathic way of teaching, which I put myself in their shoes all the time. So I try to understand where they might be finding it difficult, and so it was very satisfying to see that they were following me, and then they were learning and they were enthusiastic. So I really loved it. And that was like a full semester. For the school in China that I organized, that was fun because I had to plan it all, and so find the lecturers and planned all the different topics. So that was a lot of fun, and going to China, we had 100 students. It was very exciting, but it was very short. It was like just a week, so it was quite intense. So yeah, I really love teaching. I really hope I will keep teaching, because it's one of the best things of what I do, I think. I mean, the reason why I like to learn new things is just so that I can then pass them on, right, to other people. I mean, it's not the same for everyone. A lot of people like research because they don't like to teach. It's normal. Everyone has different tastes. For me, it's a great part of what I do.
That's a really good outlook and really nice to hear that you're learning a lot more when you teach, learning more about your subject, and that's really nice. So do you think working in a different country has broadened your spectrum of thought?
Yeah. As I was saying before, I mean, it's just very hard to explain unless you really experienced it, how much your vision of the world is expanded while you move to a different country. Again, probably even more if I maybe move to Asia or Africa, or I don't know. I moved to more North America, which again, it has a lot of things in common with Europe, but still, it is also very different in many, many ways. And so I don't know. And also meeting all this, I mean, North America is also very multicultural, especially Vancouver or Los Angeles, where I live now. And in general, science in North America, all these universities, there's people from all over the world. I mean, the percentage of Canadians at UBC in graduate students, for example, is very low. And it's the same in Caltech. There's people really from all over the world. And I mean, that really changes your perspective on everything. You start understanding the different cultures, and how the differences that you thought were big, for example, between European countries, then you realize they're very, very small.
Yes, that's great. So what does a typical day at work look like for you at Caltech?
So when I started, after a couple of months, the pandemic struck. So it was a very different experience that probably most people had before me. But now we are kind of back to what it was before. So maybe I have more of an idea what it's like. So we travel a lot. Right now I'm in Italy, but just because I'm between conferences. I was at a conference last week in Athens, and I'm going to Germany soon. And so that's a big part of what we do, going around the world and tell other people about our results and our research. But when I am in Pasadena, and let's say I go to the office in the morning, I have lots and lots of emails that I have to reply from all the collaborators around the world. The cool thing about the pandemic is that since we were all stuck at home, it didn't really matter where people were. You could really collaborate with whoever, right? And so we started collaborations really all across the globe, because it was still meetings on Zoom, even if they were living, a kilometer away or 30,000 kilometers, didn't matter. It was the same. So I have lots of collaborators from all around the world. And so emails from them and replying, and then I do my work, which most of it is on my computer, because I do, maybe simulations or calculations or analysis of data or writing papers. And so I work mostly by myself in my office, but there's also a lot of collaboration and meeting with people inside Caltech. So we have meetings, we go out for lunch, and maybe sometimes at night I go back home and the work is not done because I start observing. Because I observe with telescopes a lot, maybe a couple of times a month sometimes. Mostly with the big telescope on Keck. Keck is called the telescope. It's on Mauna Kea in Hawaii. It's a 10-meter telescope, and I usually use a spectrograph on it, so it's an instrument. And the other one that I use a lot is called is the Hale telescope at the Palomar Observatory, which is in California. And so usually I connect to them remotely. So again, from this computer, and we connect on Zoom with the telescope operator, and I use the instrument using the computer remotely. Again, because since the pandemic, it's been very hard to actually go to the telescopes. But also because even before the pandemic, it's much, if you're observing a lot, many times a month, you don't want to go to the telescope every time, right? So now that it's possible to do it remotely, a lot of people do. But for example, for me, since I started observing during the pandemic, the first time I actually went to one of the telescopes that I was using was in May this year. That was the first time, even if I've been using them for like 3 years. In May this year was the first time that I actually went to the telescope. It was a great experience because I actually see it moving and see it's a great telescope. The 200-inch, like this Hale telescope at the Palomar Observatory, is this huge telescope from the 30s. It's really impressive. But yeah, that's about it. Like, I mean, lots of meetings, working on data, working on models on my computer, and lots of observing.
That sounds really exciting.
And paper writing, of course, we write the papers. Like when we figure out a new discovery, we have to write the paper and send it to the journal. And then the journal will publish it, and we go around the world at conferences to present the results. Yeah, I guess that's astronomers' work in a nutshell.
That's really great. And the fact that, you can actually control a telescope from your home itself, that's also really fascinating. So what are the various skills required in a job as an astrophysicist that you didn't think would be required?
Well, there are a lot of different ones. I mean, obviously, all the analytical skills and computer skills, etc. That's what everyone thinks about, right? And those are very important. Ones that some skills that people don't really think a lot, but they're very important, is narrative skills. Because at the end of the day, when you discover something, you have to communicate it to other people, either in a paper or in a conference. And so you have to tell a story. You have to get people engaged and be excited about your discovery. And so storytelling skills are very important in our job. You usually think about writers or movie directors, or those are the people that need storytelling skills. But we do need storytelling skills as well. I think in every field we end up working in, since we're humans and all human interactions are about telling each other stories and get each other excited about what we do, is being able to tell your story in a captivating way is always very important. So I think that's something that people not always think, but it's very important. And another one, it's people skills, which is also another thing. Think of scientists always working on your own thing. You don't really need people skills if you're a scientist, and maybe that's true. I mean, you can go on even if you don't have much people skills, but it's not true. I mean, we do collaborate a lot, right? And so it's important, especially if you want to become a professor and become a mentor. It's very important that you develop these skills of being able to work with people, being able to understand what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, why maybe if they're struggling or on something, being able to help them. That's a very important thing that I think it's like probably if you actually become a professor, because you don't have to become a professor in academia, you can be a staff scientist, you can just do research. But if you want to become a professor and maybe you have graduate students, being a mentor, it's very, very important that you develop people skills and being able to be there for your students. And I think that's something that even people in academia always sometimes overlook. When you hire a new professor, you look for excellence. What have they done in terms of research? How many papers? How many citations? But it's also very important to see if he's going to be a good professor, if he's going to be a good mentors for the graduate students. I think that's something that is very important to have.
Thanks for sharing that. I definitely didn't think that storytelling and people skills would be really needed in a career in astrophysics. And that's really
Right?
um,
But I mean, I think that's going to be important in everything you do, because we're human, we're connected, and when you're in a group or in a team, being able to, not only do your work the best, but being able to, having the other people be at their best too, it's always very important.
definitely. So do you have any tips on how high school students can start doing research early on? Do you have any tips on how they can get started?
Well, I mean, that depends a lot on the country. So it depends on what the system you have. I mean, in the US, there are some programs that you can tap into to get some research skill very early, to get to do some research program. I mean, some of the professors like Caltech, for example, they sometimes take during the summer, especially, they take on one high school student to do some projects together. That of course would be amazing because you get some real research experience right away. So I actually have no idea about India, and I would not know even about Italy if someone asked me, because I've been in North America for 7 years, so I haven't heard for a while. I didn't do any research when I was in high school. Not even in my undergrad. It was very hard to do any like actual research during undergraduate in Italy. So I mean, just keep your eyes and ears open. Just look on the internet to see whatever it's available. I mean, you're in this program, so that tells me that you're already very focused and you're already very you're really looking out for this kind of opportunities. I think that's great. I mean, just be curious and look around and try to, even if you cannot get a really hands-on experience in actual research with actual researcher, which it's very hard as a high school student to get. Just keep being curious and maybe read the astronomy papers, all these astronomy magazine about new research, because when you actually end up maybe during your undergraduate, when you go and talk to a professor, for example, or to someone that they want to give you a project, right? It looks much better if you have some idea of what they're working on, right? So one thing that I'm seeing a lot is as students, of course, because you have no idea what's going on in the research, you're just very enthusiastic, you want to work with someone, and then people sending random email and say, hey, I want to work with you, but they actually don't know what this person worked on, right? Well, I always suggest to everyone that is reaching out to a professor or researcher and they're working on something, always try and understand what they're actually working on, right? Go and, reading scientific papers is hard, especially if you don't know the subject, so it's hard, but you might find some press releases on what they're working on and that they explain things a bit more in a more understandable way for the public. And in general, like if you read these, all these outreach magazines or like science magazines that are for the public, Space Now or like Astronomy Today, or all of these magazines that they tell what's going on in in research and in astronomy, but in a very approachable way. So if you're really curious, just keep reading those, and you might find, there's this. They usually interview the people, or like they have like a quote for people working on the specific things, and you say, oh, this research seems very cool, and they have this quote for this person that worked on it. Maybe that's the right person that I should contact to do a project together. So yeah, that's my advice. When you're reaching out to work with someone, always know what they're working on, or at least try. At least read their. The problem is that a lot of people have very bad websites they're very outdated, and what they're working on is actually something very different. And the website it hasn't been updated since 2014. So it's not easy. It's not easy to do research on people, especially professors. But yeah, just try and just go on get an idea what they're working on, and so that you can show that you're interested in what they're working on, not just in generic astronomy or science. And then the other advice is, it's always important to plan, if you want to do research, and to be prepared and to be on top of things, and but it's also important to live your life because what I see a lot is people that stress out so much about getting into the right university and then getting the next position and work and work and work, and then you forget about living the rest of your life, right? Just have a hobby. Just don't give up everything for studying. I know it's hard. I know the world right now is asking everyone too much. You have to be the best and study so much, have the best grade and the best. And I cannot even imagine how it is in India with all those extremely competitive competitions that you have and exams. I just can't imagine. It must be so tough. But it's not worth it if you're not, happy. if you don't have anything else in your life. And I have to say, most of the people I see on the long term being successful in academia is people that have also something else in their lives. I mean, because again, when then you end up, you can remember the people skills and storytelling. You need to be a round person to have those, right? To have other interests and to have a life. So try to balance. It's very hard. It's very, very hard. Me, myself, I struggle with that a lot. True. Everyone does. And it's going to be hard, and science requires a lot of effort, a lot of studying, a lot of times where you don't have a life because you have that deadline, you have that exam, and you have to focus on that, and that's okay. but also try to put in some other things.
That's very helpful advice. Thank you so much. Finally, what do you think is the best part of being an astrophysicist?
The best part of being in astrophysics is just that, when I look up in the sky, I know what's going on there. It's very exciting, talking with people, and they ask a lot of questions, of course, when they find out you're an astrophysicist. Oh, wow, you must know so much about the sky. And it's always so much fun when you tell about the things that you study on, and people are like mind blown, like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that was happening above us, right? While as an astrophysicist, of course, there's so many things you don't know, but you still know a lot of things of what's going on above there, and you understand them, and I think that's the best thing. You find this new object that no one has studied before, and it's something completely new, and while you're studying it, you're the only person on the planet that knows about it. And maybe it's a tiny thing, maybe it's just this new type of white dwarf or whatever, but it's still very exciting that you are the one in the entire world discovering this particular thing. Or in general, that you get to learn about all the other people are doing, and so you have this little glimpse on what's going on in the sky from all the other people that you're collaborating with, and that you go to conferences and colloquia and seminars and etc. And I think that's the best thing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Ilaria.